16-year-old Nihal Sarin is through to round 3 of the FIDE World Cup 2021. He was paired against Sanan Sujirov of Russia in round 2 and he outplayed his higher ranked opponent with the black pieces in their second game. Let us have a look at how the game progressed. Sanan Sujirov went for the Royal Lepez defense and Nihal thankfully doesn't go for the Berlin but instead goes for the Marshall attack, which can happen after uh, direct shot castle on the 7th move instead of the move d6. So shot castle c3 would actually allow black to play d5 directly, e into d5, knight d5, knight d5, knight into e5, rook e5 and c6, and this is known as the Marshall attack, hugely favored by Aronian even in today's times, and a lot of nice games in this position in the match Anand versus Gatakamsky of 1993. Short castle, white did not, that's why allow black to go for this line. He goes a4, not allowing the Marshall. The idea is to take on b5 immediately, so black plays bishop b7, d3, d6, knight b d2, and here black found a nice maneuver for himself. He goes knight d7 with the idea to play knight c5 and undermine this bishop. c3, knight c5 anyway, bishop c2 and take on a4. White took on a4, but now he has given up his light squared bishop, which is the pride of white's position in the Royal Lepez. It is super useful in on this diagonal as well as this one, because once you play d4, then already this diagonal opens up a little bit and the bishop comes into play. Right now, as we can see, white has given up his pair of bishops, so opening the center logically would be in black's favor. That's why black goes for the plan with bishop c8, intending to play f5. It's interesting that the bishop is much better on its original square than here where it was supposedly developed. So bishop c8, knight f1, f5, knight e3, f into e4, d e4. We have opened the f file for the rook, but we also need to be careful of tactics. White is threatening queen e5 check and pick up the knights on c6 for free. So king h8, very useful move in this position. b4, queen e8. We want to bring more pieces on the king side and basically create an attack against white's king. Knight d2 on the board. White was threatening to play f3 and consolidate, so black prevents it with bishop h4, pinning the f2 pawn, rook e2, and now the position has changed slightly. It's not the same. The rook on e1 is better than the rook on e2, and Nihal realizes this and he quickly plays knight e7 with the idea to play knight g6 and knight f4. Knight f4 coming in with tempo this time. So white played knight f1. There is a move like knight f3 here attacking the bishop, but first of all black can go back to f6, and secondly he can also consider taking the f3 knight and spoiling white's structure. And now already a move like even bishop h3 is very strong. Knight g6, knight f4 coming in. Even though black is an exchange down, he has full compensation for the material, and it is white who has to be very careful in these positions. So white plays knight f1, knight g6, knight g3, trying to create a fortress in front of his king. After knight f4, rook e8 even, but now the rook on a4 suffers even more. It doesn't have an easy way to come back into the game. The bishop on c1 is also a little lost. Black plays rook b8, not allowing any b5 stuff. Knight gf5 and bishop d8. Knight g3, back. White is definitely a little lost for plans, but maybe a move like f3, which was white's intention anyway initially, could have been considered here. White played knight g3 back, queen g6, and f3 finally. But now he has wasted. As you can see, he wasted two moves playing knight f5 and knight g3. So black takes full advantage of it and goes h5, h5, h4, h3 even. And h3 on this move, g3 feels like feels so good to play this position with black, because you have this strong pawn on h3, you have provoked g3 and f3 weaknesses. Guys, what would you play here as black? Maybe you can pause the video and think for yourself. Nihal played a nice move, knight e6 here, very strong move, but there was also a very interesting idea with d5 over here, giving up the f4 pawn, knight, and after pawn into knight, pawn into pawn, you're attacking the knight on f5. It has nowhere to go. If it goes to g3, you take the pawn on f4 as well and attack both the knights. And after pawn into pawn, you attack the knight on e3 once again. And after knight f1, guys, what do you think is black's idea in this position? Please let us know in the comments. If you found it, kudos. I will keep it a secret. Queen f3. White, and if white plays a move like queen f3, you can simply pick up the knight on e3, and this would be very good for black. So d5 was a deep idea here, but hard to play, hard to spot, and knight e6 is the more human move. It keeps the advantage. Rook f2, queen h7 on the board. You are threatening to play g6 next, so white plays knight c4, making room for the knight. Bishop b7, king g1, and d5. We want to open the center because it opens our bishop's diagonal, and basically we are playing against the weak white king in this position. So knight e5, pawn into pawn, pawn into pawn, bishop e4, and this position looks super hard for white to play, and white already went wrong with knight d7 in this exact position, but actually he had a stunning defense here. A move like queen d7, very beautiful. The point is that after bishop f5, white has the resource queen into e6. Beautiful queen sacrifice, and bishop e6 allows rook f8. And here, guys, once more question for you: will you play bishop g8 or queen g8 here? Do think for yourself. Bishop g8 would be an epic blunder because knight f7 checkmate. What a beautiful checkmate on the board. So black has to play queen g8, rook g8, king g8, and knight c6, and this would have been a very equal endgame. So that is the reason why queen d7 works, because white has this beautiful resource of a queen sacrifice in this position. Black can of course continue the game with bishop f6, not take the pawn on knight on f5 immediately, and queen f6 would run into bishop e5, queen e5, and bishop f5, and this position is slightly better for white. For black, easier to play because white's king is still weak, white's rook is still out of play, and black's pieces are still very active and attacking the white king immediately. So that's why this position would have definitely been easier for black to play, but queen d7 was an epic resource which was missed by Sujirov. He played knight d7 instead in this position, but after rook f5, knight b8, rook into f2, king f2, and queen f5 check, his king is completely exposed and will be checkmated. King g1 allows a move like c6 with the idea to play bishop b6 check, and bishop e3 would run into bishop c2, picking up the rook. Queen a1, by the way, allows queen f3 and queen g2 checkmate, and if you go back here, then I simply take the bishop, and this is all kinds of checkmate on the board. So that's the reason why white has to go king e1 in this position. Black played bishop d3 with the idea to play queen f1, and another checkmate coming in on g5, so bishop e3 is again forced, and bishop f6 attacking the pawn on c3. Nihal is making a threat with every move, guys. This is how you handle a position with advantage. You make a threat with every move. So bishop c4, idea is to play queen f1, king d2, queen d3, and pick up the bishop. He doesn't miss a single move. He doesn't miss a single chance to make a threat, and after bishop f4 he simply picks up all the pawns. By the way, queen f4 would have been a huge blunder here because it would have allowed queen h5 and this perpetual on the board. So mouse slips luckily are not possible in over the board tournaments, and queen e4 was played, king d2, queen f4, king c2, queen h2, king b1, and here there are many ways to finish off the game, but Nihal chose the simplest. He went for queen e2, and after queen into e2, bishop e2, you simply push the pawn and win the game. So white resigned after queen e2. Beautiful game by Nihal. For anyone having a doubt whether bishop queen e2, bishop e2, c4 works, no it doesn't, because white has a move like bishop f1 covering the h3 square. Here this idea of c4 is of course that after h2 you want to give rook h3 check and pick up the h2 pawn, so we simply prevent it. Prophylaxis, and the game is ours. Excellent game by Nihal Sarin, and we wish him the best for the coming rounds. Thank you for watching, guys. Bye bye.